the Beothuk, whose culture has now been erased forever. And I'd like to acknowledge that the island of Newfoundland is the unceded traditional territory of the Beothuk and the Mi'kmaq. Today and always, we must remember that reconciliation with our Indigenous communities on this land is crucial, and with the exception of these communities, that we are all settlers on this land. To start off, Mark May is an accomplished singer and a supporter of many Tamil community initiatives. Thank you, Sime. We will now welcome someone who needs no introduction, the President of the Canadian Tamil Congress, Mr. Sivanalongo. Sorry, Mr. Alongo, I think you're muted. Apologies, we seem to be having some sound difficulties. Just bear with us just for one moment. Perhaps we can move to the next item and then have Mr. Lungo come back after. And so the next item we have on our agenda today is a video presentation regarding the events of 1986. And next, we will welcome back Mr. Sivanelungo.
Thank you, Karthika. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Canadian Tamil Congress, I would like to welcome all of you to today's event, the Tamil Journey 1986. 155 Tamil men, women and children, all of them Orca, boarded a merchant vessel, Regina Maris, with the hope of a new life in Canada after fleeing Sri Lanka because of the widespread and consistent discriminations and violence against Tamils. After being at sea for 6 weeks, they were placed in two 28-foot boats, lifeboats, by the vessel captain and asked to steer in a particular direction to reach Montreal. In reality, these men, women, and children were dropped off in a risky region of Atlantic near Newfoundland. They were adrift for 3 days, running out of food and water, and they all believed that they would die of either drowning or starvation. In the midst of their terror, They prayed and hoped someone would save them before the boat sank. On August 11, 35 years ago today, the late Gus Dalton, captain of Atlantic Reaper, a fishing trawler, and his crew spotted these two lifeboats with people screaming for help off the shores of St. Shots, the southernmost town in Newfoundland. Gus Dalton immediately radioed the boats in the area, and with the support of his crew, Thomas Power, John McEnvoy, and Joe Maldoni went into action. To ensure adequate space, Gus and his crew dumped their cash worth of thousands of dollars and took in as many from the boats as they could and alerted the Canadian Coast Guard. They immediately shared all the food and water they had with the refugees, who were very grateful. After a difficult and dangerous journey across Atlantic at the time when these men, women, and children had just about lost hope, Gus and his crew brought them safety. All of the Tamil refugees were treated with dignity and initially housed at Memorial University and taken care of by the kind people of Newfoundland before they were flown to Montreal and Toronto to join the Tamil Canadian community in those cities. The Prime Minister Brian Mulroney and his Minister of Immigration Jerry Weiner made a decision to welcome them all 155 and grant them refugee status in Canada. As quoted by Jerry Weiner, people that arrive on our shores in boat must never be turned away. They have now settled well and continue to contribute in every way to the cultural, social, and economic fabric of Canada. If not for Gus Dalton and his crew and others who helped, it is possible that these 155 refugees may have perished at sea. Tamil Canadians are ever so thankful to Gus Dalton, his crew, people of Newfoundland, and the Government of Canada for their kindness. At that time, many Canadians also criticized the refugees, commenting that they were jumping the queue, bypassing the formal immigration system, and taking advantage of Canada refugees law, and wanted the government to say Mr. Brian Mulroney and his government determined that the refugees were indeed genuine and decided to accommodate them in Canada. This decision was a milestone in the history of Tamil Canadian, and the community will always remember this act with deepest gratitude. Over the years, Tamil Canadians have expressed their gratitude to Captain Dalton for his selfless and heroic actions. He was first honored by CTC in 2011 at a small dinner in St. John's with his family and friends in attendance. Captain Dalton was also the recipient of CTC's Leaders for Change Award, presented in January 2012 at annual Thaipongal dinner in Toronto. In August 2016, over 135 Tamil Canadians, including some who arrived on the boat in 1986, visited Newfoundland and hosted a last banquet to honor Captain Dalton and other fishermen involved in the rescue, as well as the Canadian Coast Guard, to thank the community for their warm hospitality 30 years ago. CTC also obtained one of the lifeboats which was displayed at Tamil Fest. When our current Prime Minister, Honorable Justin Trudeau, visited Tamil Fest, he had a chance to inspect the boat and meet some of the Canadians who undertook this risky voyage in search of a better life. In addition, CTC also displayed the boat in Kingston, Montreal, Ottawa as part of Canada 150 celebrations. We want to take this opportunity to thank Diana Express Limited for transporting the boat from Newfoundland to Toronto and keeping and preserving the boat for future displays in a museum. We want to thank Dalton family and all our speakers for joining us today and all the support you have provided. We also want to thank MP Gary Ananda Sangari for his leadership and support in Tamil Journey Initiative and all the work he has done, including being in touch with Gus Dalton family over the years. Finally, we thank Cyrus Singh for being part of today's event and also doing the documentary. Once again, on behalf of Canadian Tamil Congress, we thank all of you for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alongo. We will now hear from a very special guest, someone who was among the 155 on the boats that day, or who arrived that day, and is living now in Toronto and running a highly successful business, Mr. Siva Mehanathan.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to Gus Dalton and other fishermen who saved the lifeboats, because without you, I would not be here today. Thank you to the Canadian government who accepted me and 154 people in his country. The whole experience was scary, and I did not think we would make it, but with the God's grace, Gus and other fishermen come to save us. Also, thank you to the Gary Anand Sangari, because without your effort, the story of 155 people stranded would have gone unheard. I was blessed with a second chance at life by Gus, the fisherman who helped him and the government of Canada, and I am truly grateful. உண்மையிலேயே கஸ் டால்டன் இல்லை என்றால் நாங்கள் 155 பேரும் கடலிலேயே மூழ்கி இருப்போம். அவரை நான் ஒரு கோட் ஃபாதராகத்தான் பார்க்கிறேன். அவருடைய இறுதி சடங்கு கூட நான் சென்று நியூஃபிலாந்து எனது கண்ணீர் மல்க எனது நன்றி உரையை ஆற்றியிருந்தேன். இத்தருணம் அவருக்கும் அவருடைய குடும்பத்தினருக்கும் எனது நன்றியையும் ஆழ்ந்த அனுதாபங்களையும் தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். நன்றி, வணக்கம்.
Nandri, Mr. Sivameyanathan. Next up, we have a pillar of our community and someone heard who was integral to our first commemorations of these events, our Member of Parliament, Gary Anand Sangari.
Thank you, Karthika, and thank you everyone for being here. I am joining you from the traditional lands of many Indigenous nations, most recently of the Mississaugas of the Credit. I am pleased to be joined by the Minister of Immigration, Marco Mendocino, the former Minister of Immigration, Jerry Weiner, and of course, Jack Harris, who is the current and retiring. My family in Newfoundland, I call them my family because over the last 10 years, the Dalton sisters have become an integral part of my life. And both Gus and Margaret have welcomed me into their home and my family many, many times. And I'm so grateful that I was able to know Gus at least in the last few years of his life. As you recall, we were able to secure a medal for him through the Governor General's office. Finally, almost 30 years after his heroic rescue, recognition of his enormous contribution to Canada, and I'm very grateful that the Governor General was able to bestow that on him, and that was given by the Lieutenant Governor of Newfoundland, the Honourable Judy Foote. The families of the individuals and families like Siwana who came on the boat have been my inspiration. Siwana is someone I've known for maybe 25 years and whose hard work and dedication has inspired me, but it's also a reflection of the true contributions of refugees make to countries like Canada. And I know that the other 154 individuals and their families are equally very appreciative, but also give back to this country in strides. And I want to thank them for their enormous contribution. At that time, the Tamil community was very small, and I know our lay uncle and others who were instrumental in supporting those who came were leaders and continue to be leaders and guides for us of the great achievements that they did in the past, including securing the Special Measures Program in 1983, post anti-Tamil program that enabled Tamils to settle in Canada with the first 1,800 that came through that program. The families were supported by a very generous community in Toronto, but most importantly, Canadians across Canada. The commemoration is so important today, and I know, look forward to Cyrus's presentation of In the Wake of Time, but this collaboration with CTC is also important because we do need to mark this history. The reason why this is important to me is I was 13 years old when 14 years old when the boat came in 1986. This impacted me enormously as I went back to school. There was bullying. There's a great deal of anti-Tamil sentiments across Canada, but particularly in the Greater Toronto area because of the way the media depict this journey. But it's also something that stuck with me throughout my time because it was also about refugees. It was about the story of refugees, in this particular case, Tamils, and this particular case where Canada did well. We did the right thing, but we know that that has not always been in our past. So if we look at what happened with the Kamagata Maru, and then of course the shameful SSN Louis, that believe in the rights of refugees, and I for one, as someone who came here as a refugee, have to reiterate the one of my reasons for getting into politics is the protection of refugees, is a need for Canada to always be an open society in which people can come and seek asylum. Canada is a very complicated country. Settlement itself is complicated, especially in light of the ongoing colonial. Also recommit to ensuring that refugees are protected, refugees are welcome, refugees will always be welcome at our shores, and we did not see the same type of treatment, as you know, by the government of the day in 2009 or 2010, when the Ocean Lady and the MV Sunsea arrived. But we will continue to persevere and to ensure that refugees are welcome to Canada. On a closing note, I know we talk a lot about Gus and his family, but you know, there's many other survivors who now continue to hold Gus's mantle. I know Rom Dalton, who is Gus's nephew and who was on Gus's brother's boat when in 1986. Was a young lad at that time, and he will be speaking later on. I do have to say that, you know, it's his responsibility and those who are still remaining to make sure that this story goes out. The story that is a great story of Newfoundland, a great story of Canada, a great story for Tamil Canadians, and I look forward to celebrating this in person with all of you, particularly the Dalton family in Admiral's Beach, where I know we've spent many times laughing and crying and celebrating this fabulous Canadian story, and I look forward to seeing you in person. Thank you, Kartika, for this opportunity, and thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Gary. And actually, it's fitting Diane Dalton speak now. So I'll bring Rom first up onto the screen, please.
Hello, folks. Name is Ram Dalton. 35 years ago today was a proud day for us. Started off like any other day. Just a bedlammer. Out trying to catch a few flounder, making a fine living at the time, but we didn't need a lot to live in those places. Then all of a sudden, we get the call from the uncle. Bunch of people in 2 lifeboats. We're probably a mile away from them. Weren't expecting to see what we see. It was something like a dream. But when we got to the boat, there was supposed to be 2 lifeboats full of people, one tied to the other. And we didn't know what to think. So at the time then, the Coast Guard was contacted. And we had to wait. We couldn't take them board until you want some water. So we didn't have no running water. We had gallons of water, 5-gallon buckets. So we started pouring them out in cups. So cups were good enough. Fellas used to take the 5-gallon jar and just tip it under their head. Then it's a good waste because everyone wanted to drop. So we had to gradually share out the water. We had to hide a few oranges from my father because he's diabetic to keep him going for the day. But we started opening up beans and putting them in one pot, and we had putting in soup, putting in another. But that didn't work. He just grabbed it. If he didn't, probably we would have never seen him. And the outcome would have been a lot different if the wind had to come up. The response would be a lot of people washed in on the shores of St. Mary's Bay and St. Chats. But going forward, I think it was very looking ahead or looking back. It was a great thing that we done. At the time, we didn't think it was much to do. When we look at what happened going forward and all the people that settled in Canada and became, I suppose you would say, good citizens of Canada, tax-paying citizens, contributing to our community, I believe it makes Canada better because there's more population we need. What I'm hearing from the few people when in 2016 had their little celebration, that most of them are probably going to say all, but they're never all in anything. That most people got good jobs up in Toronto and Montreal or wherever they're to, and are doing well now. So hopefully they'll continue. And what I'm hearing that there are children now. 35 years ago, I was 27. Now I'm 62. But I'm sure the children are having children and their grandchildren. The Tamil community is growing and prospering in Canada. So I hope that going forward, it's a proud day for me today at 35 years. Each year we think of it, come up on my Facebook again, all this week, that the memories comes up. So, it's always in everyone's mind and shared and people comments. So all that does good for the Tamil community and all immigrants who come to Canada. You see, we grew up in a little community with hardly any people, just one religion, Catholics. No dark-skinned people. We only read about those in a book, even up to that point in time. So now it's great to see that everything is working out well for everyone in Canada. And I suppose I don't know what else we can say. And I wish everyone luck in all they do going forward. I got more time. Okay. Best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Rom. And I think you're about to be joined by Diane. We're so lucky to have both of you here. Hi, Diane.
She can hear you. The screen. Oh, yeah.
Hi, Diane. Thank you for joining us here today.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Just one moment, please.
No problem. I'm sure many of our viewers know we lost Gus a few years ago in 2018, but we were so lucky to have developed such a strong bond with Rom and Diane and Bernadette and everyone else as well. So we're really very grateful that they're all here to join us today. Diane, you can go ahead.
It is such a pleasure to be here with you today. If my father's voice could be heard, he would say, I did what any person would have done in the same situation. Unfortunately, that is not always true, as we all know. And that is why we continue to celebrate this event, because it brings awareness and opens minds and hearts to those in need, like the people here did. What started out as an ordinary workday, August 11, 1986, turned out to be anything but ordinary. When my father saw those two 35-foot lifeboats filled with 155 people, I'm sure he was initially shocked. But he quickly acted from his heart and mind to do what he knew he had to do in this dangerous situation. He told me that he had to simultaneously back up his boat to position it between the two lifeboats while instructing his crew to set up a boat barrier on deck so the people wouldn't panic and try to jump on board and possibly sink his boat. Lifeboats to the sides of his boat while dealing with a language barrier. He also had to radio Marine Atlantic to get permission to take the people on board, as well as radio neighboring boats to help board the others, because my dad took on his boat the children, women, and the sick. He also knew that the weather sea situation could change quickly, as they were in the area of the Atlantic Ocean, locally known as the Graveyard of the Atlantic. After this experience, my dad often talked about the little girl who was on the boat that day. He had made porridge for her, and she was staring up at him, afraid to eat. So he took a spoon and ate some, and then she started to eat. He would fill up with tears telling us about this, He often on the beach in Turkey. No one will forget that picture. This is why it is important for us to carry on this conversation. This is a good example to show the world why we should look for similarities in each other and not the differences, and to keep our focus on solutions like Dad did, because by doing this, you can only bring positive experiences to others. Thank you, Gary, and the CTC for honoring my dad over the past 10 years. But his real reward was knowing that that little girl was able to grow up in a free world where she could make her own choices, and that Siva and Bhaskaran and all the others could build their lives, get married, have the beautiful children they did, and live happy lives. Thank you so very much.
Next, a friend of Gus's who knew Gus well and was Gus's lawyer on behalf of the Fishermen Union at a certain point in time, and Member of Parliament for St. John's East, MP Jack Harris.
Thank you, Kartiga, and I want to thank the Canadian Tamil Congress for inviting me to be part of this event today. It is extremely important and very memorable in Newfoundland's history too, because I remember that day, and the Tamils who were rescued were known in the media as the boat people, and because it took a little while, of course, to figure out who they were and where they had come from, and we've heard how dangerous the situation was. That they were basically trafficked. Human traffickers had organized this trip, and they left. And so the obviously the actions that were taken when they were seen by Gus Dalton and his crew were clearly resulted in saving their lives and giving them a life in Canada, which was done by the Canadian people. And I think we'll hear from Jerry Weiner and the Canadian government. I know the government of the day, the Mulroney government, were resisting arguments being made by some people that these refugees were jumping the queue and all of that sort of comment that was being made. But I want to speak a little bit about Gus Dalton. He was a man who I already knew because he was, as an inshore fisherman, was also a leader within the Fishermen's Union, and I represented them as a lawyer at the time in the 80s. Before I was in Parliament the following July, I was elected to Parliament in July of 1987. But before that, I was not. But I did know Gus Dalton, and he was what they call around here a lovely man. I think Diane would know exactly what I mean. Partly because obviously the same words and feelings that she expressed today about him and about the work that was done there were embodied in him as well. As he said, he was a humble man too. He said he only did what anyone would do, but he's right. Not anyone would do that. But he represented that the best of humanity, and his own instinct was to clearly do what had to be done to save, if he could, the people who he was confronted with. An impossible situation, as was pointed out in some of the concerns, and how they had to make sure that the danger was abated at the same time, calling on someone to rescue him. But Gus Dalton was a very well-respected man amongst his peers as fishermen and in the Fishermen's Union as well, of course, because he was part of the executive representing inshore fishermen as well. I knew him quite well, met him on many occasions, and I'm very proud to have known him because I think he did represent all of the good of humanity and an example of, in our province, of welcoming. And we did welcome people then in the Tamil situation that we're talking about, and all of the you who are see him as a hero, and also the others who helped as well, the crew and the people who helped when he was on shore. I represent St. John's East, which is where Memorial University is, which was mentioned by your president. And the welcoming that was given by people in assisting as they needed to had nothing with them, no food, no clothing, very few belongings. And this was an important piece of work that Newfoundlanders have been known for in the past, being a seafaring nation and used to that. We also experienced that in 9/11 when the aircraft that were coming across the Atlantic landed here, and we now have a program or a Broadway musical made of some of the welcoming that was done then. So we're very proud of our own kind-heartedness, but the generosity of Canadians throughout this whole issue, as Gary and Sangari pointed out. This has not been the long history of Canada, and this event in 1986, bringing the welcoming the refugees in this particular situation was a break from the past. It was a welcoming, a change in the immigration laws was made to make sure that the Tamils who arrived were going to be welcomed and to be allowed to stay in Canada. That was a remarkable decision, and it was a landmark decision and followed up as not perfectly, obviously, as Gary has pointed out, but something that was important for Canada to do. And we are the better for it. We are the better for it because we have not only the 155 who came in that 35 years ago, but the other waves of Tamil refugees and immigrants that followed it that are now an important part of our Canadian community. Welcomed then and welcome now. And we're very proud of our Tamil Canadians and our Tamil Member of Parliament, Gary Sangari, as well, and others who have been members of Parliament from the Tamil community. So I want to just join in the commemoration. It's a very important event, and it's a very important community in our country that we hope will continue to prosper, and the generations to come are welcome as well. And of the friendships that have up between Newfoundlanders and the Tamils who are in Canada is an important thing that will continue. And I think the work of the filmmaker that's making a documentary today with the descendants of the rescuers and the people of Newfoundland, the communities that helped, and the children and grandchildren, perhaps, of the Tamils who came in 1986 are also most welcome to continue to build on the friendships that were started back in 1986. So thank you very much for having me, and I hope you all enjoy the commemoration and participation in the film that's being made.
Thank you, Jack. And we wish you all the best in your retirement as well. Next up, we have, at the time of these events, our immigration minister, the Honorable Jerry Weiner. Hi there, Minister Weiner. Our apologies, we can't hear you. I know we've been having some tech difficulties with you this morning. Perhaps I can ask our host we'll move to the next speaker and then retry. Thank you. So next up, we have Mr. Arul Arulaya, and a very important community leader in Toronto, and who was in St. John's at the time, or went to St. John's at the time of the arrival of the boat to assist with the arrival of the refugees. Mr. Arulaya. And just, Mr. Arulaya, please make sure to unmute your microphone. Mr. Arulaya, if you can hear me, if you could just unmute your mic before speaking.
Okay. Thank you, Karthika. Yes, it's a decision that were made. Hopefully we will be able to get back to him soon. In the meantime, as Gary said, it's a great story all around. At the time, since the denial of St. Louis at some 8 years ago, this was the first instance there was a total confluence of goodness flowing all around. Mr. President and members of the Board of Directors of the Canadian Tamil Congress, first of all, I thank you on behalf of the community for organizing this commemoration event to remember that a good deed done by Captain Dalton and his crew on the 11th of August 1986. What we had to. There was so much to talk about. There's only for 3-4 minutes, I suppose. It is how all the people have reacted to that incident, starting with, of course, Captain Dalton seeing a very hazy image after seeing a blip in his radar, and deciding to throw all their valuable catches and to radio the other people also to come around the two boats and to give life to these people. Even after so many decades, it's still unbelievable to know the difficulties. The bottom of all our good wishes, we thank for that family and wish them all best of luck forever in this land. And what we have seen, what I have seen is that I am fortunate enough to go there that evening, to go there, not to necessarily meet the 155 people to provide them. The whole task was how to. We know that St. John's cannot handle such a big group of people from diverse culture, and we need to have to bring them to the big cities of Toronto and Montreal. And we had a good, extremely with the immigration department at the time on a professional basis, and Phil Pierce at the time was the acting director in Toronto for the Ontario region, and did speak to him, and he ever so gladly took up the matter and conveyed to their willingness to assist if the federal government will allow them to come around here. That's how it started. And what I witnessed at the time was that amazing degree of goodness that was flowing through, fed, and of course it happened within the Canadian Navy prior to landing at St. John's, and then at Memorial University, being summer holidays, was able to shelter them over there for outflow of help. And this we saw that at 9/11 also, how they react. So it is just normal for them. In that city, in that land, in Newfoundland, how they treat the people in difficulties. And the second portion, of course, is how that relatively now we have such a big community, and at the time, how a relatively small community in Montreal and Toronto came out in support of these people without making any judgment call. of course, we managed to bring them. My friend, Mr. Ponichami, he came there. He also came there with the lawyer, one lawyer as well, and we actually had Ponichami and the Montreal group did have some communication with the some of the arrivals, but my total intention was how to bring them out to help them so that they can restart their lives soon. Atlantic, there were very well established practices back only a few months before, in May 1986. The government has introduced the minister's permit system. So there was established procedure to cater for the needs of the Tamil refugees, or more properly defined as the people affected by the riots in Sri Lanka. In this aspect is the one we want to recall the excellent and commanding leadership given by Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. And there were some difficulties at the time because of the some incidents and other things. And the good leaders rise above the difficulties what the community sees, and he went all out of his way to calm the situation and to give the protection to all the people. It has been, and Minister Jerry Weiner was instrumental in that one. And he has taken the portfolio only about 6 weeks before, on June 30th. And so it's all, everything was new, but the heart was full of gold, so no issues. It has been my pleasure to have been. Okay, I'll add to say it has been my pleasure to join the team, and I thank you all.
Thank you, and thank you for speaking up on it. It's unfortunate. I know Minister Weiner is unable to, I guess, join us, but thank you for speaking on his behalf too. We have up next, close to the end of our program here, a champion of refugee and immigration history, and CEO of a very important and unique museum, or Canada's National Museum of Immigration in Halifax.
Is Chibuktuk in Mi'kmaq. So it's a great honor to be in this beautiful part of the world, sharing a piece of the Atlantic Ocean with those of you who are right now in Newfoundland. You know, 5 years ago, I had the great gift of being in Newfoundland with many of you, and I spent the weekend in awe, because to hear Captain Gus and the family talk about this is what we do, and it wasn't special. You know, I have the luxury of working in a place where we collect stories, and I can tell you that so many people who think of themselves as everyday people have done things that have changed the course of people's life like this. And, you know, to hear you, Diana, talk about looking for similarities and not differences is just at the core of the humanity of all of us. And I think that it's days like today when we reflect back on those moments and the moments that people make these decisions, and then the impact they have in the longer term, is remarkable. And it's days like today and stories like this that we at the museum save and collect, because they are touch points for people in the future when they hear about these things, and then they might be in a situation like this, to think of that guideline, to think of Captain Gus, and to think about these moments and what they can then do. And so I do think these things do pay it forward. The other thing I would just say to you is, you know, 35 years is such a long amount of time and a short amount of time. And I am grateful that you keep commemorating and that you keep telling these stories and sharing them, because there's so much value in having this for now, but also for 100 years from now. So thank you for that. And finally, I just want to say that when I looked back, I remember the Globe and Mail articles 5 years ago. There was a great line from Sarah-Jeanne Canapath-Pillay, and they said, "You form a culture by the stories you celebrate." And I really think that, you know, Canada has definitely had some ups and downs in terms of accepting refugees and not. And we definitely have a mixed record when it comes to people on boats, especially, as Gary Ann Zangari well knows and has talked about. But I think that we need to keep telling these stories and to remember them, because I do think our communities all across the country. And speaking of strengthening communities, I just do want to say a special shout out to Gary Ann Zangari, because I had the good luck of getting to know him like his first couple of weeks after being elected. And I just really thank you, Gary, for all that you've done to help educate me and to come and see our Refuge Canada exhibit, and its leadership from all sorts of different people in the sphere, like Gary, like Captain Gus, like the families that keep this country strong and growing and knowing we need to get better. So I just want to thank you all. And I really hope and look forward to a 40th celebration back in Newfoundland. So until then, everybody, please stay safe and take good care as you've always done. And again, deeply appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you, Marie. We have now some remarks from our Minister for Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, the Honorable Marco Mendicino.
Today marks the 35th anniversary of the arrival of 155 Tamil refugees on the coast of St. Shots, Newfoundland. Set adrift on the open sea for days, crammed in 2 small lifeboats with no food, no water, and seen alive again, the refugees were rescued and welcomed with open arms by Canada. Today, hundreds of Canadians from multiple generations and all walks of life trace their roots back to this very journey. The arrival of the refugees on the decrepit lifeboats became an example of how everyday Canadians stepped up to give safety, security, and ultimately a new life and new hope to those seeking refuge from persecution. On August 11th, 1986, Captain Gus Dalton and his team of fishermen from St. Shots stepped up selflessly to rescue those on the lifeboats and became unlikely heroes in doing so. We are forever grateful to them and their families for their bravery and compassion. Today, Canadians continue to give new hope and a new chance at life to refugees from around the world as we continue to welcome them into our homes, our lives, and our communities. Whether it is Tamils who arrived on these boats 35 years ago, Syrians fleeing war, or even more recently, Afghans fleeing conflict, Canadians have time and time again done what is right at the right time. The arrival of the lifeboats on the coast of Newfoundland has become a part of Canadian history and who we are as Canadians. Canada will continue to remain a beacon of hope for those fleeing persecution and human rights violations from around the world, just as we were 35 years ago. Thank you to the Canadian Tamil Congress for making this milestone and celebrating this important part of our collective history.
That concludes, or is shortly concluding, the first portion of our commemoration this afternoon. Coming up next is the exciting world premiere of In the Wake of Time, a brand new hybrid live documentary by Tamil filmmaker Cyrus Sundar Singh. This 30-minute live documentary begins at the moment of the perilous arrival and dramatic rescue of the 155 Tamil refugees found adrift in lifeboats in Newfoundland in 1986, and explores the ripples of that moment through the stories carried on by the next generation of Tamils and Newfoundlanders in Canada. In the Wake of Time moves the live documentary online and into the virtual space, a space of gathering that we are all still presently negotiating. Please welcome Cyrus to the screen.
Welcome. Thank you, Karthika. I appreciate it. And thank you, everyone. It was amazing to be here. I just wanted to make sure that all the cast and crew are assembled and signed in. So can we just have a check to make sure everybody's in? Our tech is Gokul. Gokul, let me know if everything's okay. And just want to make sure that everybody's in. Great. Saskia's here, Gokul's here. Okay, great. Is Ashwini here as well? Perfect. Okay, so without further ado, welcome everyone to the Wake of Time. In the Wake of Time, I now turn it over to the prologue with Katya Kari Gals.
Vanakkam, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Through the magic of technology, we are broadcasting live to anyone privileged enough to have access to the internet. From Admiral's Beach, Conception Bay South, and St. Shots in Newfoundland to Brampton, Toronto, and Niagara-on-the-Lake in Ontario, this afternoon we will experience something special, innovative, live, and genre-bending created by director Cyrus Sundar Singh. We are all part of a virtual live documentary performed right here with subjects, narrators, musicians, smartphones, laptops, and the internet. The telling of this story also includes the audience. That's all of you. Therefore, you are welcome to comment about the story as it unfolds in real time. Please make use of the chat or comment function. The Katya Kari Gals, that's me, and me, will curate your comments and offer it to the telling as it unfolds. So remember, you have a voice. There will be a few technical glitches and frozen screen. Wonderful. So we can see your comments coming in live, and please keep them coming. We will see you soon.
our noses, and each other in the belly of the cargo ship.
A village born of need and circumstance, neither earth nor roots where we used to stand.
Floating to the lure of the promised land, Montreal, in 3 to 4 days in the belly of the cargo ship.
In the belly of the cargo ship, we held our breath, our nose, and each other in the belly of the cargo ship.
The promise, we'd reach Canada in 3 or 4 days. For 12 we sat in fear, huddled together, all strangers.
On the 12th day, or the 13th or 14th, we lost count. We were set adrift in 2 lifeboats on the open sea. Strangers united in hope, 155 or 153.
We constantly invoked the names of our gods and hoped that our faith would carry us to shore. No land, no help, no hope, in the belly of the cargo ship.
Wonderful. Let's begin.
On this day back in 1986, that's a long time before I was born, in this very location off the coast of St. Shots, Captain Gus Dalton went out in his fishing boat at about 3 p.m. local time, which is now about in Toronto. Captain Dalton noticed looming shapes in the distant waves. So he pointed his fishing boat in the direction, went forward towards those shapes.
Good evening. There's a big mystery off our east coast tonight. A Canadian fisheries boat is now rescuing about 150 people from lifeboats off the coast of Newfoundland. But we don't know if the ship they were on sank or whether they asked to be put off board to try to settle in Canada.
In 2016, on the 30th anniversary of the dramatic rescue by Captain Dalton and 3 other fishermen, a character yellow bus carrying an excited group of Tamil Canadians from Toronto and Montreal departed St. John's, Newfoundland, and headed for Captain Dalton's home in Admiral's Beach near St. Mary Bay. Amongst the group were 4 men who were rescued from the lifeboats. On the way, the bus took a detour into the small fishing village of Holyrood, Newfoundland. Please welcome.
Off at the other screen, I see that you're.
Well, I mean, my dad growing up, he's always told me that he faced a lot of struggles, but I was fortunate enough to learn the story when we went in 2011, the first time we went to Newfoundland. And so meeting Gus's family, Diane and Bernadette, and seeing the photos and everything that they collected over the years, me especially, I wasn't that old at the time too, so seeing that and being one of the first people to be there and be like, you know, on news and media talking about the story, it was just so special to me.
So this is something that is a part of you, right? But what does it, like, tell me the feelings about what
really gave me the lesson of two things. First lesson was that, you know, life is very short and not every day is promised. And so to live life to its fullest and share love and share happiness and joy and be kind to one another and be there for the prime example of how he lived his life to the fullest potential by working hard, being motivated, and teaching me how to, you know, make my way through and, you know, be able to work my hardest and live my life to its fullest potential. So it is a very emotional story, and especially I'm very grateful.
I'm curious that about the story that you grew up with. How do you relate that to your friends, either in the schoolyard or when you were younger, or like how does this translate? Do you keep that? Is this something that you share with your friends, or is this something that you only kind of share with in some instances?
Usually because going off of what Diane said earlier about how we focus on similarities instead of differences and that grows love, I try to be there for all my friends and family and everyone. And I tend to tell everyone about this story, but it's only the people I trust because not everyone will have the perspective that I have and that certain people I trust will have. Of course, like not everyone will see the similarities and people will see the differences, which, it's unfortunate, but, I rather keep it to people that will see the similarities and see the love and how much this story changed my life, right? Instead of showing it to someone that will criticize it and see it in a different perspective, right?
Is it important for you to carry this story with you forward?
Of course, 100% is so important to me because without that, like my dad struggled a lot, and this was very eye-opening for him. And even in Newfoundland in 2016, I could see his mind racing as soon as he saw the lifeboat because it was a lot of trauma with that, but there was a lot of relief as well that he finally made it. But even with the trauma of being on the boat for 3 to 4 days, we also had the trauma of facing being in Canada and not being accepted immediately by the people of Canada, right? St. John's is a beautiful place and they accepted us, but not everyone was that accepting at the time, being shared still to this day. So he's grateful and I'm grateful for that too.
And finally, I want you to take me back to that moment when you got off the bus, the school bus in Holyrood, Newfoundland, and we were all faced with that lifeboat and your dad and your mom. Tell me the feeling that you had in that moment. What was going through your head? What was happening?
Yeah, I was in disbelief because to know that 155 people were split into two, half of the group was in one lifeboat. It was just disbelief because I couldn't believe that someone would have the heart to put so many people in danger in such a small boat as well, with no food, no water, and just seeing that and seeing my dad's like mind work and process everything, it was just so emotional to me because I could tell he had so much trauma and he didn't think he was going to make it, but obviously he did, which is like God's grace and that's faith, obviously. And so did what they did at the time because without them, like my dad and all those other people wouldn't be here, right?
Thank you. And is there anything else that you wanted to add that I haven't asked you or your dad wants to add with you, Shiva?
I think we're okay.
It's okay. I already speak.
Okay, all right. Very okay. So thank you so much. Now we're gonna go to the next section. Peace.
Thank you.
Good evening. In Newfoundland and Labrador tonight.
Relieved refugees, 152 Sri Lankans arrive in St. John's. They want to call Canada home.
Rescued from crowded lifeboats, fishermen tell how they found the Sri Lankans bobbing in the ocean. Who are they? Where did they come from? And how did they end up in lifeboats only 10 kilometers off the Newfoundland coast? There's plenty of mystery surrounding the 152 refugees brought to St. John's this morning. They say they are Tamils, a minority threatened by an unfriendly political climate in their homeland of Sri Lanka, a small island off the coast of India. Jay Callanan reports on the puzzle.
The Fisheries Patrol vessel Leonard J. Cowley sailed through the Narrows into St. John's Harbour about 6:30 this morning. It was a foggy welcome to Newfoundland for 152 Sri Lankan refugees on board it. Local police, immigration and medical people were at the ready once the vessel was moored. About 10 of the refugees needed medical care, although none was considered to be in serious condition. Most of the refugees are young men in their 20s, but there are also some women. Among the refugees as well are 4 families and some babies. The refugees say they were set adrift from a large vessel with an Oriental crew into 2 small open lifeboats. They say they drifted in these boats until they were picked up yesterday afternoon by local fishing boats off St. Shots on the southern shore.
It's the Cupcake Gals here, and we have a comment from YouTube. So great to hear from the next generation. We agree, and we want to hear more.
Now we switch live to the Avalon Peninsula and connect with Nicole near St. Shots, where Captain Dalton spotted the lifeboats.
Hello, Nicole.
Hi, Cyrus.
Some land on the other side. Is that the other side of the bay,
Yeah.
or what are we looking at?
So right there is Little
And are those
Colonel.
islands that we see?
Yeah, so
Okay,
that's
those are
small
Colonel
island there.
Islands. Okay.
That's Little Colonel Island. And then I'm just going to take you up
Okay.
and over this bank. And straight through there, right from their own house, that island right there, that is Greater
Yes.
Colonel Island.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's so it's just there. Okay. And you're in Admiral's, are you in Admiral's Beach?
Yep, right in Admiral's Beach.
Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we're going to go, I guess we're going to go into the house and into Gus's house and talk to Diane and Bernadette and Rom. Thank you.
Hi, Cyrus.
Yes. Hello,
Hey.
how are you? Hello, Diane. Hello, Bernadette.
Welcome to our family home. Colonel Island is an island that my dad's family immigrated to in the 1800s. It's an island within St. Mary's Bay. So my dad actually grew up on a little island, and the only mode of transportation was by boat. So in 1949, when Newfoundland became part of Canada, the government at the time wanted all these little islands and the people to move to the mainland. So they had no other choice. They were given a couple of $100 each and told they had to move to the mainland. So most of the people settled here in Admiral's Beach. And my dad, as a young man, had to, with the little money the government gave him, I think $500, had to build a house. And he did that while he fished. He had, it's so funny because, I don't know if people realize before 1949, we were a colony of Britain, England, and very poor people. So in 1949, when they did receive some money, things prospered more here.
This reasons his island home, and then he comes to face with other people who had to flee their island home, and so these two people meet up, off the coast of St. Charles. So tell me a little bit about what that leaving was, if you remember anything that your father said about leaving from Palmer Islands, that was his home.
About leaving the island, he actually kind of wanted to do it. He could see the potential in being on the mainland. That was an important part. They did, he sometimes mentioned they did kind of lose a little bit of their culture, what they were familiar with. They were on that island for his family, I guess, for a couple of 100 years. Yeah, probably a couple of 100 years. There was a big difference in the lifestyle once they arrived here and settled in.
So as we grew up, we heard a lot of directly from Ireland to this island. And then in 1955, I think they immigrated into Meadows Beach and had to start all over. There was no gardens here like they were used to on Conadon. The subsistence way of life changed, and technology was changing from salt fish to frozen fish, which was their main economy. So, it was a big time, a lot of sadness. Their sisters, my dad's two sisters had to move away to New York. A lot of people immigrated to the States at the time, Boston and New York, from Coney Island, because there wasn't much happening here. Like, it was so poor. And so we heard all those stories. And so we heard a lot of the stories through their songs, through their poems, and through the gatherings and communication in general, and through the food. It was very important.
There's always the food.
It was captured in my DNA as well. A lot of saltfish and potatoes. Exactly.
So in a way, your father's family and your family also came here in boats. We all, a lot of people have arrived in boats to Canada.
They sure did.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for being here.
I just want to make this comment because things have really come full circle because as an aging population here in Newfoundland with a declining population, we are actually now able to immigrate here, and now they are rescuing us. So I just want to leave you with that. Good point.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you for that sentiment. Thank you. And we're going to go outside. Nicole is still there. And I think this is, Nicole, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Nicole?
Yeah,
Great.
I'm still here.
Okay. So what time is it there now? Approximately?
It's a little past 3 p.m. Newfoundland time. It's about 3:30.
Okay. So this is around the time that 35 years ago, that when Gus was out, he actually located and found those people in those lifeboats. So we're actually time specific at this point. So if you can just kind of hold that, I think we have a song coming up. So I'm going to invite Saskia in. And I'm going to just turn off my camera for a second.
Look down at the sea. Be careful now, it's just you and me. The tide rolls in for the last time. Close your eyes, the storm is passing by. I may be small, but if you stand on my shoulders, we're tall. And I won't let you fall. Look behind you, the world's in flames, hiding from ourselves inside this bloody game. Look ahead, the war is raging on, but we need to figure out where we come from. I may be small, but if you stand on my shoulders, we're tall, and I won't let you fall.
Returning to our top story tonight, the first Canadian property, the Sri Lankan refugees, set longliners of 4 fishermen from St. Mary's Bay. Susan Newhook waited for 2 of the fishermen to come home to Admiral's Beach last night, and she has this report.
Yeah, we were listening to them there too, yeah. You never heard the album under the job?
People in Admiral's Beach were glued to their CB radios last night, waiting for the Dalton brothers to get in. Gus and Alvin's longliners finally came into the harbor around 1:30 this morning. Each of them had one of the 2 lifeboats in tow. Gus Dalton went out looking for cod yesterday morning and wound up being the first to sight the Sri Lankans instead.
45 minutes out and see how this head's sticking up out the wire.
30 years ago, I see exactly this spot.
We are thirsty. This much water. I say that, but I never say that. Can I have more water? He said, no, it's no good for you.
Look, you have some friends who have showed up.
But there's overspec.
Hello again, it's the Katyakara Girls chiming back in. Our earlier comment, I forgot to mention, was from YouTube and it was from Vidya Magendran. We have 2 more comments to share with everyone. First, from Facebook, we have Heather Barrett. Her comment goes, "Hello from the CBC newsroom. Fascinating to see this living documentary unfold and feel the connection between the Newfoundlanders and the Tamil Canadians in Toronto. We all share this one fragile world."
We have another comment coming in from Kotu Fest on YouTube. Thank you for sharing this and all the other stories to keep alive the resiliency that is the lifeblood of the community.
Please keep the comments coming.
Thank you, and thank you, the Katyakari Gals, and thank you for the comments from the audience. This is amazing. This is part of why we do this. You're engaged, and we're engaged. One of the other fishermen that Captain Gus Dalton called to help him was the late Jim Corcoran. Here now, I would like to invite and introduce you to 2 of his children, Margaret and Sally Corcoran, live from Conception Bay South in Newfoundland. Welcome, Margaret. Welcome, Sally.
Hi.
How are you, and what kind of a temperature is it there today? What kind of a day are we having today?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's always beautiful in Newfoundland, Cyrus. Except when it's foggy and raining and snowing. It's a lovely 21 degrees, 22 degrees. Beautiful day.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. And hello, Sally. How are you?
Good.
Good. So just all of the group of Tamil visitors that were there. And I had realized, and then when we talked, that it was actually you that sent that book. So tell us why, take us back to that moment, and tell us that little story of what that connection was for you.
Well, I guess I'll start a little bit about, maybe I'll lead up with a little bit of the connection. So I was only 2 when the Tamil people were rescued, so I don't have any recollection of it. But my mom had kept a scrapbook of articles and pictures of my dad's career. He was very engaged in the fishery, and he didn't shy away from expressing his opinion. So he made the news sometimes. And I used to like to look at the pictures and articles and ask my dad about it and his life. And there were several stories about the boat people. And my dad and his crew on the Mona Digna were included in some of those stories. And I asked my dad about it because it wasn't something that I had heard about. And, very broadly, he said that Mr. Dalton had taken care of the people, that he had radioed to other boats nearby for support, and that the fishery vessel had come to assist. My dad and his crew had shared whatever provisions that they had to kind of help, because 152 people, without food and water is a lot. And what struck me was my dad had kind of said, imagine how you would feel in an open boat on the ocean off of St. Shots. He loved being a fisherman, but he never sugarcoated how dangerous that was. And it struck him that for people to willingly go on the North Atlantic, they had to have been leaving terrible circumstances. So that evening, that I sent you some wine, or I sent the table some wine, I was out to supper with my husband and some of our friends at the Fish Exchange downtown. And I had noticed, I knew that the Tamil people were, visiting. They were there for the 30th anniversary. And I saw a group of table, and I said, I wonder if they might be part of the Tamil delegation. And I asked the waitress, and she checked it out. And so I sent over some wine because I wanted them to feel welcome and to know that their triumph had rippled farther than maybe they had even realized. And I say triumphs because, in the face of incredible adversity, they had prospered and grown, and they were able to come back 30 years later and revisit all of this. So while we're marking the 35th anniversary of their survival, I think, the Tamil people are not defined by this. It's just one more experience that's shaped who they are.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Margaret, thank you, Margaret. So Sally, do you have any recollections of back when it happened back in 1986? And did your dad talk about it?
Well, I was left to go to school in St. John's, and I began all week. So I do recall about it. And the biggest thing with Daddy, he would always tell us, don't be afraid to always help someone, because you'll never know when you will want help someday. And he talked about it, and he couldn't get over the fact that they were dropped off in the water with nothing.
Yeah.
And how does this story engage with you, and how do you move it forward in your own communities on the other side from where I am?
I guess I can see it. I have a little something here. Well, when you encounter a boat full of people floating at sea, you have to provide assistance however you are able to. That seems silly to say, but fundamentally, you help when you see someone in need. That's the moral of this story to us growing up. Daddy always said that, always help out, no matter what.
back in 2016. But I got really interested in the story, and I started reading different articles about it, and just, I wanted to know how people had done, how that they had overcome. And one of the things that I read was that the refugees, they didn't like to be called the boat people. I can't blame them. They boarded boats for a better life for themselves and their families. And one thing that really struck me was that that's not so different than what many fishermen here do every day. They board their boats to try and make a better life for themselves and their families. Nobody calls us boat people. I mean, we do it every day, so maybe we're the ones that should have that. But I don't think we can define a group of survivors by a week or 10 days or however long they ended up at sea. For me, what I take away is that when the Tamil refugees were rescued by Mr. Dalton, they became our people. They were trying to do the same thing that we do. They are part of the story of Newfoundland. And we can recognize the fundamental good of our own people when they reached out to help. And all that we can do to help each other survive and grow, and to help one another when they need help. I think, for me, it's about, we're neighbors now. We can reach out and help each other no matter what. And it shouldn't be about,
Thank you so much. And while I still have the two of you, have you ever met the Daltons?
I haven't.
Okay, let's do that virtually right now. Can we bring in Diane and Bernadette? There we go. Okay, there we are. It's happening right now.
We'll have to get together for a coffee.
I just said to Sally we should get together for a glass of wine, but I mean, we could.
I was trying to keep it under law.
Oh, really nice to meet you.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah.
And we will hook up. We'll chat.
Yeah,
we'll meet.
Brad used to say such wonderful things about Dad. Yeah, really.
Yeah. And it's nice to hear your side of the
story.
All.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sabra.
Thank you so much. Okay, I hope this fuels that coffee or that wine. So, okay, thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Over to you, Gokul.
A little later in the program, we'll be talking with the fishermen who rescued the refugees last night in St. Mary's Bay.
And after the lifeboats were taken away by the RCMP, the fishermen turned to the job of landing a small day's catch. It's a catch that was almost forgotten when two lifeboats appeared out of the fog. I'm Susan Newhook.
The reporter that I introduced in that clip that you showed, Susan Newhook, was here in St. John's about a month ago. She lives in Nova Scotia now. And she and I went to watch whales down in St. Vincent's, which is near where all this happened, where the fishermen were from, who brought all these people ashore. And we were sitting on the beach watching the whales. And she said to me, how long ago was it? We were trying to remember the year. I mean, we finally figured out it was the mid-1980s. She said, when that happened, and I came down here reporting, I said, oh yeah, I remember that day in the newsroom. So we were talking about it, just a month ago, Susan and I sitting on that beach. I mean, in both of our careers with the CBC, we have both covered many, many, many stories, and many we do not remember, but we certainly remember that one. That was a really significant story. Well, one of the things that I did every day, every morning, was I scanned the newspapers. I was always reading everything, even in the classified part of the newspaper. And I saw something from the Canadian Coast Guard that said they were selling to the highest bidder. They were going to sell the two lifeboats, the oars, life jackets. I can't remember what other things connected to the boats, but also a Tamil Bible, a Bible. And I thought, wow, that Bible. And I thought to myself, somebody's going to buy those lifeboats and things, but they're not interested in the Bible. And the Bible's probably going to be thrown away or lost or something. And I thought, this is an important object that belonged to one of the people that was rescued in the lifeboats. They brought it with them from their home. They carried it
to Europe, and then eventually here, and then dropped it in the boat and got off the boat and forgot about it. So I bought the Bible for $5, and everything else went to fishermen, I think, bought all that other stuff.
I actually was able to find a receipt that Anne had been given by the Canadian Coast Guard, and it said $5 sold to Anne Budgel. It was a one Tamil Bible for $5. That Tamil Bible, as she said, is now at the archives at Memorial University. At this point, I'd like to go to the next piece, please. Next.
Hi, it's the Katikari Gals. We're back to update you on what's happening in the comments. We've had so much, honestly, beautiful, beautiful comments, so much love flowing in from all the viewers, so much love for all the speakers and the stories that are being shared. And we just will offer you a comment, again, from Vidya Magendran on YouTube. Her comment goes, "The people of Newfoundland show us time and again how generous they are. 9/11, Tamil refugees, the Titanic. I'm sure there are
days without food or water in the lifeboats until he was rescued. There were about 75 people in each lifeboat, so that no one could
Our narrator into one of our guests. So can you come back on, please, you and your dad? Great. Welcome back. So this is a story that you have helped us to tell, and that includes your father, right? So tell us about how this story came to you. When do you remember receiving this story, from him or from anybody else?
So it was like a couple of years ago. I was probably like 8 years old. About that time, my dad told me about a story where so basically he came on this boat, but something like wrong happened to the boat, and so this man called Captain Bolton helped him by taking him to this place that could help him survive, and then he helped them by giving them food and water and stuff like that, because before Captain Dalton helped them, he had no water and food. So in my point of view, this is means a lot that Captain Dalton helped my father.
Can you tell us, can you share with us what grade you're going into, Ashwini, in September, and about how many siblings you have?
So I'm going to grade 7 on September 9th, and I have 3 older brothers.
And does this story about your father's journey, does that ever get shared amongst you? Do you ever talk about it with your brothers at all, as a family?
No, not really. But this one time when I was 8, which I just shared, we all talked about it, my siblings and my dad and me. And my brothers and I were really happy that Captain Dalton came to help him, and other people that were with him. Yeah.
Now, there are probably parts of the story that you were unsure of or you wanted to find out, especially from your father. Do you want to ask him those questions now? Ask him that question and see where we can fill some more in of the story?
Sure. I had this one question.
Okay.
I was wondering why he went on the boat.
Because I live in Germany about 1.5 years, but I can even go another city from my city. 5,000 in German mark. So I told him I'm going to Canada, because my brother told me you going to Canada, then you can study English, you can make money, so you change your life, so better you have to go. So that's why I came with my ship. So 1986, August 11. So as soon as I came here, they split, and 90 people from from Newfoundland to Montreal and 60 people to Newfoundland to Toronto. I know English from Toronto, so that's why I came to Canada, Toronto. So because I want to study, I want to make money. So that's why my plan. But as soon as I came, I already started work like 2 jobs. So that's why I don't have time to go to study. I make money. I only sleep like a couple hours. And 7 years I work like a hard work. And then I went to married. But I got 3 boys and 1 girl. Still I'm working 35 years, continue. I never stop my job. So this I love Canada. So I tell everyone, like even Europe, Sri Lanka, about Canada, best in the world. So I love Canada. So I live with my family. I'm very happy to live. Anything else?
Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you. Ashwini, have you ever been to the country that your dad's from? Have you been to Sri Lanka?
Yes, actually.
So tell me a little bit about that trip.
So when I went there, it was like lots of fun stuff, and like so a lot of his family members came. I could like I never seen them before, and that was good to meet a new person. And there's like a lot of nice animals. I love like dogs. He had like puppies, and I really loved them. I was asking him if I could take one home to Canada, and then I just realized it was gonna take a lot of money to bring them like to a different country. So it was a fun country.
That's right.
And I love the weather actually. So yeah.
Okay, and finally, I wanted to ask you before we go, Ashwini, is how do you pass on this story, or will you pass on this story of your dad's journey to your children or your friends?
Friends.
Yes, and right now I am to a lot of people. When I was talking about like how he survived from Sri Lanka, Germany to Canada and stuff without food or water or help. So
Wonderful. So thank you so much. And I've got one more thing for you before you go. So come back after the video. Ashwini, you got the first line in the last bit, okay? Okay, yeah. Thank you. Could you please roll the next bit, Gokul?
Thank you so much.
And do we have, we would like to have Ashwini and the Katikari gals up, please. Okay, and Ashwini, you have one question. You're gonna ask this question before you go. Okay, go ahead, ask the question.
Okay, so my question for my dad was what happened to the ship that he was on at first when coming to Canada on the big ship that you were on?
Cheap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I came with cheap 152 people from German, my city, Bremerhaven. I came about 12 and days, I think, inside the big ship, and then I came by the boat at least 3 days. I didn't get any water or any food inside the boat. Even I can even move from each other, and because a lot of water come in, somebody take a bucket and throw it inside the sea. So something like a very scary. We don't see any person to catch us. So 3 days we are rounding inside the Atlantic. So we don't see anybody. Then one person sees something look like something over there all the way far away, and then we follow the things because almost the gas all run out and everything within 3 days. We every night we run without gas, so just and then after they see something came close by like a small boat, and then we already went to close by Dalton. So he came and asked for us, and they asked me to where I come from. We are coming from Sri Lanka. So how long can we tell them to? One person talked about the person almost 1 month without anything, and then we jump over in the boat Dalton, and we take coke and bread, something like that. Even without him, we not gonna alive now. So we are very lucky to he catch us. So that's why we see the light now. Now I'm already working hard, married, 3 boys, 1 girl. I'm very happy to life.
There you go. And she's there and she's here with you today to talk about this story. Yeah. And thank you so much. And I'm going to let you go.
Everything my life later on. No problem.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being with us.
So
I think you may or may not need to go swimming, so enjoy your swim, Ashwini, and thank you very much. And off to the Katigari gals.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Katigari gals. We have a few final words for everyone listening. Did you know that the lifeboat has Canadian roots? The lifeboat originally belonged to the mothership Regina Maris, a Canadian cruise ship that sailed on the St. Lawrence River. In 1985, the Regina Maris was sold and sent to Bremerhaven, Germany to be retrofitted. 3 of its lifeboats were sold and found their way onto the cargo ship, the Orge, which left the West German port of Break on July 28, 1986. With 155 Tamil Sri Lankan refugees on board. The moment the lifeboat unloaded its strange cargo in Newfoundland, it was discarded and its value as a life-saving vessel was dismissed. It was auctioned off by the Canadian Coast Guard and was soon forgotten and lost to history. For the next 30 years, the lifeboat continued its new life working as a fishing boat. It was bought, sold, and owned by 4 different local fishermen until that summer in 2016, when Cyrus helped reunite the lifeboat with its former Tamil passengers in Holyrood, Newfoundland. So, I ask you, is it not destiny that a German cargo ship would return home carrying its intended strange cargo? How cool is that? And before we go, we're going to add one last comment from Facebook. This is from Merit, Norway. They say, thank you so much for this conversation. And we have to say, thank you all for listening. In the belly of the cargo ship we held our breath and each other. A village born of need and circumstance. Not earth and roots where we used to stand. Floating to the lure of the promised land, Montreal. In 3 or 4 days. In 3 or 4 days. In 3 or 4 days. In the belly of the cargo ship, we held our breath, our noses, and each other. In the belly of the cargo ship, we held our breath, our noses, and each other.
In the belly of the cargo ship, we held our noses and each other. Floating to the lure of the promised land, Montreal, the promise we reached Canada in 3 or 4 days. For 12 we sat in fear, huddled together, all strangers.
On the 12th day, or 13th, or 14th, we lost count. We were set adrift in 2 lifeboats on the open sea.
Strangers united in hope. 155 or 156. The promise we reached Montreal in 4 hours. For 3 days we drifted in our lifeboats with no food or water. We were lost, cold and hungry. No land, no help, no hope. We constantly invoked the name of our gods and hoped that our faith would carry us to shore. No land, no help, no hope. In the belly of the cargo ship.
Unto I